Chapter 3.6 Renaissance, Part 2. So we're going to look at the Renaissance in Northern Europe. So some stylistic differences happen in the northern area. Again, Italy is the focus. So Northern Europe, Germany, France, Netherlands, Belgium. This is going to be less concerned with idealized figures and perspective. So the depth of field and that linear perspective that's using a ruler, you're not going to see that as much, or really at all sometimes. Symbolism is important. Lots of little items that you're going to see in a painting with meaning. And then oil painting techniques get developed here, and you see texture and glazing, which is impasto, and glazing is like a mainly oil with a little bit of pigment in it, covering the whole surface to make it a certain tone. So this might have had a light brownish or a yellowish tone over the whole thing. I don't know for sure in this particular piece. So oil on panel is what we see here, and panel means wood, and wood sometimes will crack, and we see a little bit of that crack going down here. Moving forward, we get into canvas, but that hasn't become common usage at this point. But oil paint is a revelation because you can work it over long periods of time, unlike fresco and tempera. Okay, so we get all these fine details. We see all this really veins in his hand. His skin looks translucent. This glass has so much detail on it. Every coin is perfectly rendered. This reflection in the mirror, which harkens back to Van Eyck, which we're going to look at. But all these textures and details, really gorgeous. Depth of space. There is some here, and there is a shadow, of course, a light source coming this way. But we don't have true linear perspective in this piece. So this is Christian morality. A shopkeeper is counting his coins, and a wife is reading her devotional, and she doesn't want to be distracted by materialism, but she is, so she's got her Bible here, and then he's counting his money, and you know how that goes in the Bible anyway, but so she's getting a little distracted by the money. So morals versus greed, and then we have that illusionistic convex mirror. Okay, so this piece, Grunewald's Eisenheim altarpiece, very famous piece, and in World War II, this is a piece that was fought over and moved and kind of stolen, but I'm going to get too far afield here. So you notice how there's different segments. Now this is very typical of the Northern Europeans. So this would be in an altar, and then you could fold it, and usually, or at times, you'd have an illustration or a painting on the other side as well. So multi-storied, we have four different images here, but different phases of the same story. Christ on the cross here, and then here we are at the tomb. Highly detailed. This was at a hospital, so it was trying to get the patients to relate to Christ in this sort of diseased or sickened way, if that makes sense. So he's depicted here a bit more distraught and bloody than you might see in the Southern European Italian Renaissance. But this was hopefully to inspire some empathy with the skin disease sufferers. St. Anthony's Fire, that's where the hospital that it was at. I'm not saying that very well, but you get the idea. So it's a graphic depiction of the crucifixion. That's very German, to do graphic, dark, include all the gory details. That's very German. Okay, so we're going to get in the Arnolfi portrait. Oh my goodness, so many things. So much detail on this thing. I feel like every time I teach about this, I learn something new myself. We have a really good image here where we see some gradations of color in the coat. And I don't think that books always do a great job at this. I've seen this in real life. This is in the National Gallery. Really an amazing place to go. But I digress. So here we have the Arnolfi portrait. This is either a wedding certificate, a wedding commemoration, or a memorial because this is his past wife. So there's a lot of speculation these days. Some new information, I think, came to light with some art historians, so they're a little conflicted about this. But if we go back to the idea of marriage, then the two of them are standing here, hands held together. Our dog is a sign of fidelity and wealth we have here. They are not in a church, they're in a room, but he has bare feet here, so this is a sacred ground. And then you can kind of see a church in the window here, but it's very hard to see with this small image. In reality, you can see it a little bit. So fruit on the windowsill is for fertility, and she, of course, is holding her skirts up to look sort of pregnant, and the bed is nearby, so we're focused on the possibility of childbirth, so that's important in this particular image. So the marriage is occurring, and then hopefully the pregnancy will come shortly. The single candle burning on the chandelier is a reference to the presence of Christ. So there are a number of things in here showing holiness or divinity, and his hand is in a position of benediction. I can't get my mouse going. This is a benedictive. We've seen Christ have his hand up in this way. So there are some things indicating the divine. There's fertility as well. And of course we have the mirror here, which precedes the previous image that we just looked at. And Van Eyck does a self-portrait in here. Very, very small. It's tiny, but he's got that indicated in there. Let's see what else I'm missing. Okay, here we go. So this is a reflection of the whole room. I mean, holy smokes. A single-haired brush was probably used. Tons of detail. So this is the epitome of the Northern Renaissance. Lots and lots and lots of details, some of which you can't hardly even see without a magnifying glass. So the crystal prayer beads indicate their piety. Again, we have a lot of symbolism here for their respect for the church. And then this is the scenes from the Passion of the Christ, these tiny little things. I mean, can you imagine? And then he signs his name here as well. So it's sort of evidence that it's a marriage contract, if that makes sense. Perhaps a legal document, we don't know. And that this is a wealthy merchant and his wife. And we have a lot of symbolism here, and it's inscribed by the artist.